If Donald Trump doesn't announce that we've got alien crap at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, I know for sure that we do not.
Didn't appear to be depressed, but you don't know. It's like he probably did struggle with depression and PTSD, but he never talked about it.
I've scoffed at the deep state idea, but this actually is cut right from the page of what you would expect from the deep state, right? Like, we can't tell people this stuff. The public can't handle this. Welcome to Bourbon and Rum, the podcast dedicated to civil conversation. I'm Kent. I like rum, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle. I like bourbon. I tend to be a little more conservative. We're brothers talking politics over bourbon and rum.
What are you drinking?
Well, I am drinking the Journeyman Distillery's Last Feather Rye. This is
nice.
a dessert rye from a little distillery in Three Oaks, Michigan, down in the southwest corner. Our brother-in-law, who was on the podcast a couple months ago, bought me a bottle of that, and it's a nice kind of dessert rye, heavy wheat content for a rye, and kind of a vanilla banana flavor. It's really tasty.
I've had the pleasure of visiting that distillery.
Oh, nice.
I am drinking, it's called Parche rum from Colombia. And the expression is called their Parche rum Brothers Blend. I bought it. I saw it on the shelf. I was stocking up for things for the podcast, and it was called Brothers Blend, and I thought, well, hell, I can't pass that up. So,
well,
anyway.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't pick a Venezuelan rum.
I have one, and I was going to get it out, but it's just not very good, the one that I have. Now, Diplomatico is very good from Venezuela, but
I've got a Diplomatico. Good. I should give it to you. I mean, I'm not crazy about it, but.
Well, what else is cooking? What else should we touch on here?
It's a huge change of pace, but I was home this week and reading through our father's. We did when a few years ago we did like a lot of people. We do that thing where they email them all these questions and they answer stuff, about their lives and everything. And one thing I thought was funny is his is half the size of Mom's. Mom's is double the size of his. It's like same number of questions. And much of it is like very, like, what is your belief structure? Well, I believe in God, the triune God, blah, blah, blah. It was like one or two sentences, like there's not much to say. Like, well, this is what I believe. Or, he had, I don't know, I laughed at one point because he talks about his sister and he's like, I see my sister every now and again. The relationship's quite pleasant or something. It was like, what are you talking about? You hang out with this woman all the time. So, okay, it just sounded like, yes, I see her occasionally.
I've never seen this.
Yeah, you need to check it out. But I was reading through, he talked about the presidents he voted for. And he voted for Johnson. I thought that was fascinating.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Wait, in 64. 64, not in 68. Well,
yeah,
no,
it must
Johnson
have been,
didn't run in 68.
Yeah, it was against Goldwater, right?
No kidding.
Yeah.
You could knock me over with a feather.
I never thought of that. Never heard him say that. And he said, I regretted after the fact later, but at the time he voted for him a lot because of his support for the war in Vietnam. And of course, our dad went to Vietnam. So it's, as we look back through our historical eyes are like, why would anybody have supported the war in Vietnam? It's crazy. Why did they do that? That was, a crazy thing to go do and didn't do any good. Now, I think if you had Dad sitting here, he would even said to his death that there were positive outcomes of Vietnam. But, it's like, that they kept them back and that they didn't go any further than Vietnam. And, you had kind of a thing there, which obviously if you spent 11 months of your life deployed to Vietnam, you probably would have a different view of the endeavor. But
Sure. Well, and I will add my own to that, I've been pretty dismissive of the war in Vietnam, but that dismissiveness is directed at the president and McNamara and
right.
the Americans who served, who died, who suffered, who gave of themselves there were nothing but noble. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, it's not
1,000%. Right.
the other thing, and I don't know if he mentions this in the book, but I heard him say one time that, and I guess it would have been, so 64, he would have been in college then, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Born in 42, maybe a senior in college or about to finish up.
And so
Might have been in the Navy.
What was the year that he told me one time? He told me one time. He didn't tell me 12 times, but he told me one time that he was looking at going to Mississippi one summer as a freedom rider or one of those things with the Martin Luther King.
Wow.
And actually, I wish I'd have pursued that a little bit more. And I chuckle a little bit, but honestly, I will say that he was a man of faith, and I think he was personally extremely committed to justice for all. And so, like, it's not inconsistent for me to think about him supportive of human rights and civil rights during that era. Knowing him later, not because I think he was on the wrong side of history in terms of racial justice, but because he was such a lifelong Republican after that, it seemed strange to me. But actually, it's not inconsistent with his character that he might have considered something like that.
Well, you presuppose that Republicans are on the wrong side of the racial divide and the Democrats are on the right side.
No, I don't mean that at all. What I mean is, though, that I think you would not generally assume that someone who spent the rest of their lives as a prominent Republican would have, in the 1960s, been thinking about, I'm going to go be a freedom rider in Mississippi. I don't think that. I want to make sure that comes across clear, that I'm not trying to paint Republicans as not being committed to racial justice. But it was surprising to me. But then I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, that's actually not that. I don't think that's inconsistent with his character.
Well, but I would also be interested to see the party demographics of 60s Deep South. A lot of these redneck racists were, I'm sure, on both sides of the aisle.
Oh, actually more Democrats by large measure. Although that was at that juncture time. I mean, 1968 is that big turning point when Nixon was able to gain such ground in the South.
Yeah.
So interesting. What any other highlights from the book that you saw? This is really interesting to me.
Yeah, I wish I'd paid more attention. I was mostly struck by his brevity. Well, he was not, for those that don't know him, not a guy really comfortable with talking about his feelings or emotion or anything like that. So, there was a lot about the war, and, he's like, he said, well, we're at the Valley Forge and we had Marines coming on and we saw many wounded and killed, and, there was some hard stuff there or something like that. And boom, ended, he didn't, but I know, and I think that, I don't know, it's a huge epidemic today with veterans of foreign wars that are committing suicide on a daily basis. There's organizations that the number of suicides are happening every day are just crazy. And there's this PTSD that people are suffering from that's not new. I mean, it's bad right now, but I'm sure Dad saw crap every day that you wouldn't ever want to see again, and he never spoke about it. And even when he addressed it, he's like, yeah, it was hard. Well, I don't know. The manifestation of that takes a lot of different forms. A lot of people are killing themselves now, but it drives people to drinking, it drives people to different things. He didn't seem to have he wasn't a heavy drinker and didn't appear to be depressed, but you don't know. It's like he probably did struggle with depression and PTSD, but he never talked about it, and it was like that age that it was like he kept it all bottled in, and then how did that then manifest itself in him later? It's just, you could never, even if he was alive today and we wanted to talk to him about that stuff, you wouldn't get it out of him.
No. You know what I wonder too, though, compare and contrast. Our maternal grandfather was in North Africa and Sicily and from Normandy all the way to Germany in World War II as a frontline tank officer. And I know for a fact that he was not just a witness to the brutality of war. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
he was directly involved. And he certainly bore the scars of it. But he was actually a little more capable of talking about it.
Yeah.
And here's what I wonder. I want to roll back to, I'll say bad things about Lyndon Johnson and Robert McNamara running the Vietnam War, but I don't think bad things of the people that were uprooted from their lives in this country and went to serve our country honorably in Vietnam. But our nation had its head up its ass for a couple of decades about the Vietnam War. And in some ways, some of his war trauma was post-war trauma for the way that veterans were treated in this country after the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
National disgrace, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally.
You can I feel the same thing about the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. If they'd have made me president and secretary of defense, I might have taken a different path. But the guys that went and served their nation deserve the full honor and full accolades.
Yeah.
And I think we have a better sense of that. Even to this day, even people that were opposed to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, we handled it better as a nation. Not perfectly, but better as a nation about honoring the people that did the work.
Yeah.
It's shameful how we treated Vietnam veterans. And I wonder how much of, how much of that, like, is it not bad enough that we send people to war and witness the atrocities of war? That you come home from that and you get disregarded by your nation?
Well, and it's
utterly unacceptable.
I'll tie it back to Hegseth, so to really help your drinking situation. But one of his arguments, and I'm not debating whether this is the right argument or not. So I'm not trying to say anything good or bad about what he said. But he said about the Department of War, one of the things he cited is that since World War II, we haven't had a decisive victory. And whether or not, forget Hegseth for a moment, but when you do think about it, post World War II, every military engagement has been a bit of it's like, we don't know when to end the damn thing, because there's not a decisive, like, hey, well, I mean, actually, I would say that's not true. I mean, Desert Storm under Bush, that was a decisive victory. We're going to take it from here to there, and then we're going to be done. And we did it, and we were done. Now, that said, it was decisive in the moment, but then we had to enforce a no-fly zone over Iraq for the next 20 years. So, like,
Right. I was going to call out Desert Storm because it did have that clear objectives and objective achieved kind of a thing, Well, then you got the problem. You predetermined the outcome that you were willing to get to,
Yeah.
and in hindsight, you realize, actually, like, yes, we achieved the objective. We got him out of Kuwait.
Mission accomplished. Yeah.
We probably would have been better to keep rolling.
All right.
So it's a sticky wicket, but I don't know. I don't know that that's a reflection of poor policy on our country's part, or is that a reflection of the nature of the geopolitical situation now? Right? Like, I don't know. World War II, you had one of the reasons that it was pretty clear cut is that it was pretty clear cut. There was a right side and a wrong side, and you had to defeat the wrong side. You know what I mean? Like, the situation was that. I don't know. How do you win a war in Afghanistan?
Well, and you had I think what we haven't seen maybe as such too, especially in Japan. I mean, Germany, like the leader was dead and you basically owned the place, and then occupied it. And we occupied Japan too, but at the same time, the emperor got on a battleship and signed the treaty. You haven't seen that where there's been a head of state that's in charge enough to be able to surrender. I mean, most of these people, by the time you get done with them, it's the Taliban. Like, okay, it's just a bunch of ragtag gang members. It's not like the emperor gets down and signs a treaty.
Well, and you're swapping out, I mean, candidly, you're swapping out one gang for another.
Yeah.
In a lot of these cases. You don't really have state actors at that level. We got rid of Saddam.
But I wonder about yeah, that's true. I wonder though, I know our grandfather, he saw his share of I'm sure he saw all kinds of horrible stuff. He never really talked too much about the horrible stuff. I know, like he talked to Dad about shooting a guy one time, and I think in a church, and that really haunted him. I mean, he had some things that haunted him, but it was never like, at least the stories he told me with me, it was never the trauma of it, like seeing a guy's guts and stuff like that. Never. I'm sure he saw that every day, but that right. kind of stuff never was really brought up. But it's like every story he told. I mean, he would tell just amazing number of stories about battle, like famous battles, Battle of the Bulge, and he was at D-Day +2, I think, and talking about vivid memories about what had happened. But those memories and those stories were always I always felt a sense of celebratory mode, like, yeah, well, then we kicked their butt here and then we kicked their butt there. It was a pride element of, yeah, we killed it. We killed them, and we kicked ass, took names. But I think when you compare that with Dad's experience in Vietnam, they didn't have some great story to tell that they solved everything. They just put up with a lot of crap.
Well, you're fighting an insurgency, and not to get too speculative, but here's praying for peace for Ukraine. Do you get a satisfying war end in Ukraine? Is such a thing there to be had in that case?
I mean, unless they can take out Putin and all of Russia, I don't know how you would. Because even if you got back all your territory and you pushed back Russia, to me, you're always thinking, well, what's next? And when are they going to come back?
Yeah. It's interesting, so much of the world is dominated by this whole alpha level superpower and a couple of beta level superpowers, and you know what I mean. It's not even synchronous now. When we were kids, you had a very distinct U.S. and NATO versus Russia and the Warsaw Pact, and it's really not even that now. It's a strange kind of a balance, and candidly, most of our warfare, certainly our warfare with China, is not happening on Navy ships, it's happening on container ships. You know what I mean? You have
Yeah.
a kind of a warfare that happens in a different realm. It's going to be interesting.
Well, and what is warfare going to look like if the allegations in that documentary you watched are true?
Ooh,
You
boy.
watched the documentary, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I don't have enough liquor in the house or time in the evening to get too far down that road. But holy cow, can't recommend it enough. It's worth seeing a contemporary documentary about unidentified aerial phenomenon. The headliners of the documentary are the sitting Secretary of State, half a dozen sitting United States senators, all of whom are basically confirming that we have non-human intelligent technology in hand and biological remains in hand.
This is the age of disclosure film, I should point out.
Yeah, that'll keep you from sleeping well at night, honestly. It was
Did
kind of
the,
terrifying.
I mean, okay, the Secretary of State and the senators, how did, how did they say, like, they've seen it or what?
I got to hedge a little bit because that's how this thing goes. Everybody that speaks in the thing's like, well, I've got to separate between what I can tell you and what I can't. The biggest outrage, and I think Marco Rubio actually really nailed it in his remarks, there's like a scandal within a scandal. The scandal is that we have had a secret government program that has been gathering evidence, documentary evidence, and ostensibly, arguably physical and biological evidence for stuff we cannot explain for 50 years or 80 years or something. And Marco Rubio said there have been United States presidents who have been cut out of the loop because they didn't need to know. Wow. In other words, the fact that this government it's the ultimate deep state thing that people, the CIA, defense intelligence, are just like, we're just not telling people this stuff. And Rubio's like, we've spent a whole lot of money researching this stuff. The public has a right to know what we know. And the hypothesis is none of the senators or Rubio are actually copping to, I've seen the little green men at Right Pat. There are other people in the documentary who say that. But mostly their point is there are these ongoing, active, secret programs that whatever it is, whether it's aliens or whether ancient civilizations or something else, it is not technology that is a part of our current dynamic between us and the Soviet Union and China. And somebody needs to explain that. Somebody needs to look people in the eye and say, there's stuff out there we don't understand. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that, for what it's worth, I don't think that necessarily argues that it's extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
I actually love the hypothesis that it's pre-existing, pre-human civilization that is here, not elsewhere. But the point is that there's stuff that we do not have an explanation for. And the government's lying about the fact that we should come clean and say, there are things we don't understand. There are things flying around in the sky. I will leave you with this. I thought this was really interesting. All of the military disclosure that's happened was the Navy. There's Navy pilots off of the Nimitz. There's Navy pilots off of the East Coast flying around that have seen things. And there's a shot stuck out there that the Air Force is a part of the cabal. It's like the Air Force and the CIA and the DIA that run the program. And the Air Force has never acknowledged that there's anything out there that we don't know. The Navy's like, their pilots they've got reams of paper explaining it. And this one guy said, naval aviation is an important part of the Navy, but it's a small fraction of the Navy. How is it that Navy pilots see this stuff all the time and Air Force pilots have never admitted to seeing anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they said it probably is a matter of culture, that the Air Force, that's one of the thrusts of the documentary, that there is a culture among military pilots, and particularly they point out in the Air Force, of people know that it's career suicide if you come out and say, yeah, I was flying cross country on a thing and we ran into a flight of flying saucers. People you're done. And so people don't report stuff. It's a really interesting watch. Can't recommend it enough.
Well, I guess just tying back to our armed conflict today, it's like you get these people in eastern Ukraine duking it out against each other for what? Like, what are you fighting over? And a UFO shows up and lands. Like, it's like all of these things we're doing on all these conflicts. If you put it in a extraterrestrial perspective, are they all just kind of pointless? It's almost like Lord of the Flies, when the adults show up, like, what the hell are you doing? And it's kind of the same thing. Like, if something that consequential happened, it's like, does it change everybody's perspective? Like, what are we fighting about?
So that is I think the scariest part of the thrust of this film. Basically, the hypothesis is that there's stuff that we don't understand, that we have some, that Russia has some, and that China has some, and that what we've been involved in over the last, say, 20 or 30 years is these three competing governments in a race to reverse engineer this technology.
All to fight each other with it.
Right. Instead of somebody saying, holy crap, hey, can we take a time out here and realize that we're not alone in the universe? And like, should that not? But you know what? It actually makes perfect sense, because you can see how that, I've scoffed at the deep state idea, but this actually is cut right from the page of what you would expect from the deep state, right? Like, we can't tell people this stuff. The public can't handle this. We got to keep it for
that
ourselves.
Same instinct. Well, hey, now we can beat the Chinese and the Russians. I feel like it's this tribal instinct that is very similar to the political instincts. Like, well, I can't. This would make us look a lot better than the Democrats. That's that same, like, I'm just going to do what's best for me and my little clique here, and the hell with the rest of them.
We have a global pandemic that kills millions of people, and both sides are like, how can we leverage this?
Yeah.
We got aliens land on Earth with their crap from outer space, and we're like, how can we get over on the Chinese with this?
Right.
Like, how classically human.
Well, and to your point, I mean, we're talking about, well, the people in eastern Ukraine going to drop their weapons when they see the UFO. Well, we didn't exactly come together across the aisle during the global pandemic. What makes you think any other act or force of nature would produce that? It probably won't.
Yeah. Until the saucer lands on the White House lawn and the guy walks out and says resistance is futile.
Yeah.
We're all thinking about how can we play. We're going to take the aliens on, and we're going to use the aliens to beat up on the Russians. Great. So the last thing is the hypothesis that's hinted at in the movie. A guy's like, I think Trump's going to announce. I think and honestly, if Donald Trump doesn't announce that we've got alien crap at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, I know for sure that we do not. Because if there's anybody who would love to be the guy that makes the announcement,
I know
it would be Trump, right? If Trump doesn't do that, the the movie's got people saying, I think it's time. We need to tell the American people.
Yeah.
There's stuff out there we don't understand. He would love to be the guy. And if he doesn't say it, it probably isn't true.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a really good point. And the other piece of it, I hope it does happen. And then I can't wait to see he's making this up,
Trying to leverage the alien technology for his own gain.
That's right. Or distract from the Epstein files. One of those.
You said the word. Our streak is unbroken.
That's right. Back to Epstein.
Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bourbon and Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep the good spirits flowing.
And we invite you to join this conversation. Follow us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear.
And until next time, cheers.